Mm. All right. It is September 6th of 2025. Extremely hot and humid here in Pennsylvania. And in the United States, we don't have another holiday coming until Halloween. So we're into the start of the spooky season. And to begin that, I thought we could try playing Robin and Orchid, which is a game from 2013. I've played through the beginning of this a couple times, and I think I watched part of a Let's Play. I've seen a little bit of the source code, so I have some familiarity with it, but I've never finished it. And we can go ahead and play online at Ryan's website, it looks like. And I don't think there's any background music, so if you'd like to find something for yourself to play in the background, I recommend opening another tab or music player by which to do so. Robin and Orchid. Casey glances around the newspaper office. Orchid is gone, right? Yes, she left. Why do you ask? I wanted to give you this while she wasn't around. He hands you a thick, well-leafed notebook. It's just kind of a guide kind of thing, with some general information and directions, just to help you get around. Don't let Orchid see it. Are you sure I'll require so much background material? And why shouldn't Orchid see it? Well, Robin, Casey says, and he spins around a chair to sit on it backwards in what he surely thinks is a very casual and friendly pose. Orchid is a church member, and you're not. And you missed the lock-in, so you don't have a lot of the context that Orchid has. I just wanted to put you on an even footing. And for your second question, I might have written some things in there that I wouldn't have said to Orchid's face. You nod and slip the notebook into your backpack. I'm sure you've adequately prepared me for my mission. Yes, I have. You're welcome. No, wait, I've got one more thing to say. Make sure you take lots of pictures, obviously. It's your job. That's one, he starts counting on his fingers. It's more fun if you run off by yourself, so you make sure you get Sharon off your back. That's two. And keep an open mind. I mean, just because you don't believe in ghosts doesn't mean you're not going to see one. So, yeah, that's three things. Robin and Orchid. An exercise in photojournalism by Ryan Veeder and Emily Bogheim. Release 4, serial number 140602, Inform 7, build 6G60, I6 / version 6.32, library 6/12N. Nursery. Sharon, in her wisdom, decided that everybody should sleep in this cramped corner of the church basement. Battered toys spill out of the toy box and across the floor, piling up in a corner of the room. Cupboards are mounted high on the walls, out of reach of tiny fingers, and an enormous blue recliner sits underneath them. It's already dark outside, and the doors west to the basement stairway and south are dark as well. Your sleeping bag is lying on a tidy patch of floor, ready for when you finish your investigation. Orchid is lounging around, lecturing you. You'd better hold on to this, she says, handing you the camera. You're the official photographer. Just don't forget, if you see something that might be evidence of a ghost, make sure you take a photo of it. You slip the camera strap around your neck. First thing we should always do is type about. Ryan and Emily began work on Robin and Orchid in July of 2012. Their original intention was to enter it in the 2012 Interactive Fiction Competition. Then their intention was to enter it in the 2013 Spring Thing. If you're reading this, that means they have successfully entered it in the 2013 Interactive Fiction Competition. An adaptive walkthrough has been built into the game. You can enter the command walkthrough to get some directions if you're stuck. Something might also happen if you try hint. This is very cool. I love this. More games should do this. If the mood strikes you, you can email one or both of the authors at rcveeder@me.com or emily.bogheim@gmail.com, or say hi on Twitter at rcveeder or at Emily Bogheim. Credits: lead designer / head writer Ryan Veeder, head programmer / lead voice of reason Emily Bogheim, beta testers Jonathan Blask, Colin Jukic, Amanda Lang, CEG Patian, Michael Wayne Phillips Jr., and Zach. Bible quotes are from the New Revised Standard Version. Special thanks: Ryan's church, Emily's churches, Ryan's high school, and all the jerks he graduated with. Let's take the opportunity to examine ourselves. You are Robin Monahan, high school junior, associate reporter for the West High Warbler. You are not overly fond of churches, and you have never claimed to believe in ghosts. But here you are. Orchid notices your notebook. What's all that? She asks. Oh, Casey gave it to me. It's just some notes about things in the church. Is there anything about me in there? I don't think so, you lie, and Orchid loses interest. Let's take the opportunity to examine her now. Orchid, like most girls your age, is taller than you. Her cheeks are covered in freckles that you had never seen before tonight. She must put makeup on over them for school. You have the uneasy feeling that there are more freckles on her left cheek than her right. She notices you examining her, and you look away. Oh, and, Orchid adds, don't turn the lights on while you're looking around unless you have to. Some ghosts won't appear unless it's dark, and we've only got tonight to gather all our evidence. So it looks like we're on a ghost hunt. Let's try photograph Orchid with the Polaroid camera. You snap a picture of Orchid. The camera whirs and vibrates and eventually spits out a print of the photo. Sharon stomps into the nursery. There are supposed to be some blankets somewhere in this nursery, she says. Robin, can you find them and grab them for me? She looks thoughtfully at the child-sized cots scattered around the room. Let's examine Sharon. Sharon is the student-teacher assisting the staff advisor for the West High Warbler. In the past, the staff has always managed quite well without a student-teacher, but she does come in handy as a chaperone for situations like this. Okay, girls, she says, here's how this is going to work. While we wait for her to expound, I'm going to take inventory. You are carrying a photo of Orchid waiting, Casey's notes, and a Polaroid camera being worn. Sharon continues. This is your story and your investigation, so don't expect me to be running around the church with you all night. She pushes one of the cots up against the wall. Let's check out these cots while we're here. Each cot is composed of scratchy fabric stretched over an aluminum frame, and there is no way any of them could be very comfortable. Sharon pulls another of the cots toward her and lines it up with the first one. I don't care if you stay up all night. Tomorrow isn't a school day, so it's not my problem if you're exhausted. Personally, I want my 8 hours, though. Let's photograph Sharon while we're at it. You snap a picture of Sharon. The camera whirs and vibrates and eventually spits out a print of the photo. So I'm going to stay here and sleep, and you two are going to get on with your investigating, and not wake me up unless there's a life-threatening emergency or something. I'll examine the photo of Sharon. The photo shows Sharon bent over the nursery cots, rearranging them into some kind of grown-up-sized bed. Orchid, pass me that cot in the corner, will you? Sharon asks. Orchid pulls a face, but goes to get it. I take the photo of Orchid. The photo shows Orchid standing around aimlessly, a slight frown on her face. Just don't complain to me when you've spent the whole night ghost hunting and have nothing to show for it, Sharon says. She pushes the last cot into place alongside the other two and frowns at the result. Let's look up Sharon in the notebook. This action may cause some slight lag in the browser version of this game. We sincerely regret any inconvenience. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. Why do people like Sharon want to become teachers? By people like Sharon, I mean people who obviously hate everything about teaching, even and especially students. If you're already completely jaded and cynical after your first semester of student teaching, isn't that a sign that you should give up on K through 12 education and possibly on life in general? She unrolls a thin mattress on top of the cots. I expect the West High Warbler can find some other story to run if this one doesn't work out. It'll be a nuisance, though. We should look up Orchid while we're at it. You flick through the notebook and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. Here's an anecdote about Orchid. This happened just recently. I didn't tell you because I wanted to save it for here. Okay. I'm at school after hours because of rehearsals, but we're still in the fairly lazy stage of the production, so there's lots of time to just goof off around the school. So while the underclassmen are sitting around in the hall running lines, I head up to the drama office because there are donuts there. But Orchid and Aiden Kingsley are already up in the office, and as soon as I poke my head in, Orchid looks up and says, "Actors only, please." And I'm like, "Actually, I am an actor." And she says, "Well, you know what I mean." No, Orchid, I do not have the slightest idea what you mean. I would have just grabbed a donut and left, but you're not allowed to take the donuts out of the drama office. So I just left. I wouldn't say I hate Orchid. Hate is a very strong word. I completely hate Aiden, though. Have you found the blankets yet? Sharon asks. You shake your head. They must be in one of these cupboards. Somewhere. She looks up at them and sighs. Sharon is barely taller than you, and she obviously doesn't want to try to search the cupboards herself. Someone from the church would know. Don't look at me, Orchid says. Well, I'll take the hint and look at the cupboards. The nursery cupboards are numerous and mounted high up on the walls, presumably so the kids can't get into them. Get on recliner. You step up onto the seat of the recliner, adding at least a foot to your height. It takes some hunting to find them, but there are the blankets up on the top shelf. I was able to search the cupboards by opening them. Let's take blankets. Give blankets to Sharon. Sharon takes the pile of blankets from you. Thanks, Robin, she says. Suddenly, Orchid gasps and grabs your arm. Someone's outside, she squeaks, pointing at the window. Behind the glass, you see a pale face, blurry in the dim light. Well, who can pass up the opportunity to photograph the face? With the Polaroid camera, the click of the shutter sounds loud and the silence seems to startle the creature outside the window. It turns and vanishes out of the light, its tail flicking past the glass. Orchid gives a high-pitched giggle. Scared of a cat, Sharon says. You better not freak out and wake me up every time you mistake a shadow for a ghost tonight. Let's look up Robin in the notebook. See if we have notes on ourselves. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. Let's see. Robin is, I would say, the second best writer on the newspaper staff. She is pretty fun a lot of the time, but some of the time she is a stick in the mud. Mostly she's good, though. She came to the church youth group 1 or 2 times, but now she doesn't want to go back for a bunch of reasons. The reason I am writing about you in the third person is, it's a joke. It's supposed to be funny. Orchid peeks over your shoulder at the photo you took. Hey, that's good, she says. I guess you can see how it's a cat now, but it looked really spooky, didn't it? I guess we should look at the photo of the cat. It's the photo you took of the cat looking in through the window. How did you ever think it was a person? It's much too small and pale to be anything human. Although outside the window, obscured by the glass, it did look pretty ghostly. Sharon yawns. Right, I'm going to bed now. Keep out of trouble, don't break anything, and don't wake me up unless it's really, really serious. Got it? Without waiting for an answer, she lies down on the row of cots, facing away from you, and pulls the blankets over herself. Orchid says, We'd better get started. How about this? You check out the basement, and I'll go upstairs and look around there, and then we'll meet up and compare notes. Don't forget to take a photo if you find any evidence of a ghost. She slips out of the room. A moment later, you hear her footsteps echoing in the stairwell as she heads back up to the main floor. So I guess we're already in the basement. That makes sense, based on what we've been told. Let's look once more. So once more, we're in the nursery on the recliner. Battered toys spill out of the toy box and across the floor, piling up in a corner of the room. Cupboards are mounted high in the walls, out of reach of tiny fingers, and an enormous blue recliner sits underneath them. It's already dark outside, and the doors west to the basement stairway and south are dark as well. Your sleeping bag is lying on a tidy patch of floor, ready for when you finish your investigation. Sharon's makeshift bed doesn't look comfortable, but apparently she's fast asleep anyway. Let's look up Casey in the notes, since he's such a humorous individual. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. Dear Robin, I am Casey, your friend. I am writing to you from the past. Back here in the past, it is very dark, but we have hope that you, in the future, will be able to rekindle the flame of enlightenment and lead us to wisdom. Have you seen a ghost yet? If you haven't seen a ghost, keep looking around until you do. Thanks. Sincerely, Casey. We examine the toys. Toy cars, a lot of wooden blocks, a tea set, that kind of thing. It looks like someone tried to take a bite out of one of the blocks. I'll examine my sleeping bag. This is the sleeping bag you got in 5th grade. You still fit in it just fine, so you can't replace it, even though it's an unbearable shade of magenta. I examined the toy box. It's just a bright red box made of lightweight plastic. You imagine that the toddlers in the church probably knock it over a lot. At least it's not heavy enough to do them any damage. Can we look up the nursery itself? We can. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. What I heard is that you guys are going to sleep in the nursery, which doesn't make sense because there are couches in the youth rooms, but I guess those couches are pretty grody, actually. I see your point. They keep some blankets up in the cupboards, but somebody as short as you is probably going to have to climb up on top of the recliner to reach them. No offense, Robin. I'm just saying. You're really short. Okay, well, we've anticipated that issue. We should check out the recliner while we're here. The armchair is covered in lumpy blue corduroy. At least it's clean. Can we get that specific? We can. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. The nursery's recliner is one of the most important pieces of furniture in the church, because anybody who has to babysit rowdy preschoolers needs somewhere comfortable where they can collapse in exhaustion. It's also an important strategic position whenever the floor is lava. That makes sense. Can we look up the cots? The cots in the nursery are for little preschool babies. Nobody else in their right mind would sleep on those cots. Any couch in the church is more comfortable. You can even sleep in the pews. Don't be a schmuck. Okay, well, I think we need to go south from here. First, getting off the recliner, you switch the lights on in the next room. Youth room. A large part of this room is taken up by a rickety ping-pong table. Couches line the edges of the room, some of them close enough to the table that they are probably not safe to sit on if someone is actually playing ping-pong. On the other hand, you can't see any ping-pong paddles anywhere, so maybe that's not an issue. In between the couches, doors lead north to the nursery, west and south. A garish golden trophy catches your eye. A trolley with an ancient TV and a Super Nintendo on it is standing in front of one of the couches. Let's check out that trophy. Examine the trophy. The figurine on top is a generic, gold-painted plastic person raising its arms in victory. The text at the bottom reads, Bible Quiz Tournament Champions. I looked up the trophy in the notes. You flick through the notes. If you come across a trophy in the youth room, that trophy we won in a Bible quiz tournament, like 3 years ago? We were competing with youth groups from the Lutheran Church and the Presbyterian Church up the street, and we did not take these Bible quiz tournaments seriously at all. But apparently the other groups took them even less seriously, and we took home the trophy 5 out of 6 times. I'm pretty sure the Presbyterians never won once. After that, we stopped having Bible quiz tournaments, and since we won the last one, the trophy just stayed in the church, even though it was actually originally provided by one of the other churches. Robin, I'm not saying Presbyterians are dumb, but man, Robin, their kids sure are. Let's examine the TV. It must be a pretty old set, based on the faux wood paneling on the sides. And the Super Nintendo. A thin layer of dust on the power switch and the Bubsy cartridge in the slot suggest that the SNES hasn't been used for a while. I am firmly in the camp say SNES, not the horrifying SNES. Do not say it that way. Say SNES like a civilized person. Look up Super Nintendo in notes. We used to play nothing but Tetris Attack all the time, but eventually it started to cause some strife among the youth group, so Patrick, the youth leader, took Tetris Attack away. Can we look up Bubsy in the notes? I don't even know what Bubsy is about. A squirrel? It doesn't even have a proper two-player mode. You have to wait and watch the other guy play. It's bad for the group. I miss Tetris Attack. How about the TV? For some reason, we never actually watch TV on the TV in the youth room. We just play video games. I guess it's because on TV, you never know if you're going to see something sinful, like a lady in a bikini or a tattoo. Underneath this, Casey wrote, "Speaking of bikinis," and then erased it. Fair point, Casey. Let us switch light off. You can't take decent photos in the dark. I guess we can't. Let's look once more. Right, the ping pong table. The scratched, peeling ping pong table has seen better days. I looked it up in the notes. The ping pong table actually belongs to Patrick, the youth leader, which originally meant that we had to take extra special care not to sit on it or scratch it up or anything. But eventually we realized that if it belongs to the church, then we need to be careful with it, but if it belongs to Patrick, the youth leader, then we can abuse it however we want. I think Heather or somebody wanted to repaint the whole thing and put a Jesus fish on there or something, but that plan has yet to pan out. I guess we should look up Patrick himself while we're at it. Patrick, the youth leader, is Grace's youth leader currently. In the distant past, there was a different, previous youth leader, but we don't talk about her. Actually, I'm looking over the other notes I've written, and it looks like I've probably said too much about Patrick, the youth leader, too. Can we look up Grace, the church, in the notes? Casey's notes say, "I have been going to Grace United Methodist since I was a little baby. I got baptized there. I got confirmed there. I met most of my friends there. I know you think churches are stupid, so you probably think my church is stupid, but I love my church, so shut up." I also attended a United Methodist church as a child. I refrain from thinking churches are stupid, but I also do not think that they are smart. Let's look at the... Okay, no paddles, but there are couches. The couches appear to be haunted by the ghosts of years of snacks and soft drinks. Casey wasn't kidding when he said they were grody. I look up the couches in the notes. An interesting tidbit. Over the years since Patrick, the youth leader, introduced these couches that he got for free into our basement, the couches in the youth room eventually got so grody that we had to switch them with the couches in the blacklight room, where it's slightly harder to tell how grody a couch is. Imagine Patrick, the youth leader's chagrin when he found out that the couches he took out of the blacklight room were super grody anyway. Well, I guess let's check out these couches in the blacklight room whenever we find them. There were exits elsewhere. Is there anything else here? We should search the couches. You'd rather not touch the couches. In fact, you'd rather not even get too close to them. What else is there? No ping pong paddles. We can look up the youth room itself, though. Look up youth room in notes. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. So this is where us high school Christians hang out and experience fellowship. There are also junior high kids. Actually, what happened was the junior high and high school groups used to be consolidated, but then Orchid and some other high schoolers thought they needed a separate group for mature people. The criterion was supposed to be maturity, but I mean, you can't tell people that they can't join your group because they're too immature. That's elitist. So instead, the criterion for the new group was whether you're in high school or not. And in the big kids group, we just play tag and gossip anyway, so much for maturity. Orchid just didn't want to have to put up with junior high kids. That's what was going on. fair enough. Let's look up junior high in notes. I don't know if this will work. You riffle through the notes, but you can't find anything that seems relevant. Okay, well, I guess let's go south again. You turn the lights off in the youth room. Black light room. You flip the light switch, but the only things that light up are your shirt and your socks. The black walls in here have been painted with Bible verses that glow underneath the UV lights. The couches are glowing too, unsettlingly green. The door to the north, on the other hand, is barely visible. Propped up in one corner is a rough wooden cross. I examine the cross. You have to guess that whoever constructed this cross purposefully chose the roughest, most splintery lumber available. Around the center plank, which is twice as tall as you are, on top of the crossbar, is a crown of thorns made from rusty barbed wire. Can we look up the rough wooden cross here, or is it too dark? Apparently we can still read here just fine. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. If you ask me, I think that big gnarly cross in the blacklight room is in kind of poor taste, mostly because of the barbed wire crown on top. It doesn't belong in a church, it belongs in a grungy music video, with some rotting steak or something. I don't know, I feel like the Torture of Christ isn't exactly radical, but I guess Patrick the youth leader likes it. Let's look up the blacklight room while we're here. It is two separate rooms. It's blacklight room. In notes. You flick through the notes and read the handwriting. If you ask me, I think that big gnarly cross... Oh, that's the same one I just read. You flick through the notes. Yes, this room. So, Patrick the youth leader got us together a few years ago and had us paint the walls of this room black, and then paint Bible verses on it, and then install black lights instead of normal lights, so it would look like a Christian rave or whatever. And I mean, it looks fairly cool, I guess. But when you have a dark room with purple lights and a bunch of couches, and then you invite teenagers into the room and leave them in that room unattended, what happens is the teenagers will use that room for what Patrick the youth leader calls heavy petting. So that's why this room is called the Blacklight Makeout Room. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, there are, right, the couches here. The black lights reveal several glowing stains on the couches. Gross. I think this is the same entry we've read before. Look up couches in notes. Yeah, okay. Same entry for both. There might be a way to distinguish the couches, but I don't think it's important. What else is in here? We have UV lights. UV lights. Long fluorescent bulbs radiate a dim purple light. If you remember correctly, you shouldn't look directly at them. Any entry about them? Same room as the... Same entry as the room itself. Okay. I guess that's... all we need to worry about here. Let's photograph cross. Photograph couch. Examine photo of cross. It's a photo you took of the rough wooden cross. Examine photo of couch. It's a photo you took of the blacklight room couches. Okay, yep, good. South to the blacklight makeout room. We can go west from here. You turn the lights off in the youth room and switch the lights on in the next room, Sunday school room. This is a room designed for small people. Low benches are arranged like pews in 2 rows, facing toward a small table that serves as an altar. A poster explaining the 10 Commandments hangs on one wall, and doors lead north to the basement stairway, east to the youth room, and west. On the small table are a small white cross and a bird cage. Look up Sunday school room in notes. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. The Sunday school room is a lot of fun for a variety of reasons, some of which I have to leave for other sections. But one very important thing to know is that the Sunday school room is a choke point between the storage hallway and the rest of this basement. This is very important to know for fire safety reasons, but also for when you're playing Romans and Christians, because the Roman can camp at that door and just pick off Christians as they come around the corner. This is one reason we've switched to playing sardines instead in recent years. We played similar games when I was in church, although I don't think we ever bothered to theme them, especially with Christian thematics. So it was still pretty much just capture the flag or similar games. Let's look at the objects in this room. We have benches. The benches can only come up to about a foot off the ground, but they're longer than you are tall and built from heavy, unfinished pine. Benches in notes. You can use the benches in the Sunday school room for one of two things. Well, you can also sit on them, but you can use them for two other things. For one, there's just barely almost enough space to hide under one if you're skinny, so they make a great sardines hiding place, because each next person who finds you can hide underneath a different pew, and it technically counts as one spot. For the other, you can't tell anybody this, but one time Gwen and I snuck in big branches from one of the trees outside, and we jumped around on those benches and had an awesome sword fight. It was intense. When it was over, we were both panting and sweaty, and there were pieces of bark all over the floor that we had to sweep up before Patrick the youth leader saw it. I guess I basically liked Gwen, even though she was super weird. Ooh, teenage romantics. Okay, well, that's cool. Look under benches. Nothing of interest there. Okay. There is a small table and a poster. Let's check out the poster next. The 10 Commandments are retold here by little cartoon children, in language appropriate to the target demographic. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, etc. becomes, don't be jealous of what other people have. As rusty as you are in this area, you can't remember which commandment is the one about adultery. It must be the 7th one, which is translated here as, be faithful and loyal. Look up poster in notes. You flick through the notes and read Casey's handwriting. Man, I know you're going to have some issue with how that poster misconstrues the original meaning of the scripture or something. I am going to tell you in advance to just calm down. Don't worry about it. Look for a ghost. I am trying, my dude. Look once more at the room. Right, we have a small white cross and a bird cage. This is a nice little cross for a table. Nothing fancy. Okay, here's what Casey says. Man, when I was a little kid in Sunday school and we had those little kid Bible lessons, I always used to stare at that little white cross to pass the time or something. I'm pretty sure I was too smart for Sunday school. Sunday school is a weird thing to be too smart for, I guess. Although, I guess when the high schoolers broke off to be their own mature group, that was basically the same thing. Kind of. In that situation, it was because we were too cool for the junior high kids. But that's still really weird. What I mean is, it's really weird for people who identify as Christians to also identify as being too cool for something. Very perceptive, Casey. Let's examine the bird cage now. The curving, faux wrought iron bars and caked-on rust identify this as one of the non-functioning, overpriced decorations which are so popular in craft stores. What does a Sunday school need with a bird cage? I'm sure it's some parable. Let's see what Casey says. Can't really tell you what the Sunday school birdcage is for. It showed up after I graduated. I think it might have something to do with, Old Testament animal sacrifices. Back when you had to give the priest 2 of your doves instead of just praying for forgiveness. I guess that makes sense. There's also a small table. Yeah, as altars go, it is fairly tacky. Sponge painted to simulate age, draped with an excessively ornate doily. On the small table are a small white cross and a bird cage. Look up Small table in notes. The little altar thing in the Sunday school room is a really horrible hiding place when you're playing sardines. Even with the lights off, it's totally obvious if someone is under there. But even though it's such a dumb place to hide, everyone always looks there first, which is important for certain meta sardines reasons that I won't get into here. A lot to consider, it seems like. Let's look again. I think that is everything here. The stairway leads up, so we should save that for later. Let's go west to the area that's hard to get to except through here. You turn the lights off in the Sunday school room. You flick the hallway switch light on, but nothing happens. In the end, you turn the Sunday school room lights back on so you can see what you're doing. Hallway. The hallway runs north into darkness. It's hard to tell how long it might be from here, though the Sunday school room to the east provides some light at this end. A huge figure looms out of the shadows. No, wait, it's just a plywood image of a lighthouse. Behind the lighthouse, and partially obscured by it, is a mural of Jesus blessing little children. A movement catches your eye. Some tiny lights seem to be floating at the far end of the hall, flickering occasionally. Can we photograph them? You snap a picture of the flickering lights. The camera whirs and vibrates and eventually spits out a print of the photo. Examine the photo of the lights. Blue lights trail across the photograph, bright against the darkness of the hallway. Can we examine the lights? The lights float across the ceiling like rings of blue smoke, blinking in and out to a frantic, inaudible rhythm. Well, that's kind of creepy. What else is in here? Can we look up lights in notes? What do you mean? The flickering lights, light switch, or the black lights? Flickering. You riffle through the notes, but it looks like Casey didn't have anything to say about the flickering lights. Lighthouse. The piece of plywood is about 8 feet tall and an inch thick. A minimum of detail has been painted on to convey that this tapered rectangle is supposed to be a lighthouse. There are no supports. It's just propped up against the wall. I look up the lighthouse in the notes. The lighthouse symbolizes how the church is a beacon of guidance to the rest of the world. I don't mean my church specifically. I mean all of Christianity. Or at least Methodists. There was the mural. Let's look up Jesus in the mural. As is traditional, Jesus is depicted with very long hair, a white robe, and a beatific smile. Okay, looking up the mural of Jesus in the notes. I volunteered to paint a mural in the basement, and Patrick the youth leader gave me permission, so I painted a mural of the 4 beasts, the man and the lion and the ox and the eagle. And it was a great mural, but once they saw it, they went ahead and covered it up with Jonah. Oh. Really? Look up Jonah in the notes. I guess that just brings us back here. Okay. Look up mural of little children. Okay. Examine little children. Happy little children with various ethnic backgrounds are crowded around Jesus. I wonder if he is misremembering what the mural is, or if they have repainted the mural since then. I don't know that we're going to get an answer to this question. Let's try going to the north. Hallway. The tiny lights to the north continue to drift aimlessly. Thanks to the light filtering in from the south end of the hall, you can make out some kind of mural painted on the wall, but you can't tell what it's supposed to represent in the gloom. We can examine the bluish blob, the indistinct smear, or the swath of yellow. Bluish. It's too dark here to make out any details. Yeah, okay. No details of any of this. The lights float across the ceiling like rings of blue smoke. Still the same. Okay. Let's continue to the north. The flickering lights are only a little way to the north now. Otherwise, it's almost completely dark. At least you can still see this light at the south end of the hallway. The rectangles to the east and west must be doorways to somewhere, but they're barely distinguishable from the walls. Can we try going in one? Nope. Nope. Let's examine the lights now. Still the same. Okay, north once more. As you approach the lights, they flicker one more time and vanish, leaving you in complete darkness. Darkness. It is pitch dark, and you can't see a thing except for the dim light trickling in from the south end of the hallway. Okay, well, I guess let's go back to the south. You run a hand along the wall to help you find your way, and your fingers trail through something cold and slimy. Ugh, now it's on your hand. I photograph a slime with the camera. You hold the camera awkwardly in one hand, trying to not get any of the ectoplasm on it. The photo falls to the floor and, feeling around for a moment, you pick it up. Can I examine the slime? Nope, it's too dark. Let's keep going south. It's almost completely dark. At least you can still see the light at the south end of the hallway. Okay. Oh, it's the cat. Hallway. The hallway runs north into darkness. It's hard to tell how long it might be from here, though the Sunday school room to the east provides some light at this end. The plywood lighthouse, on the other hand, peacefully fails to provide any light. Behind the lighthouse and partially obscured by it is a mural of Jesus blessing little children. The cat is sitting in the middle of the room, staring at you. You're still on the other side of the room when the cat scampers off to the east. Examine slime. The ectoplasm is pale gray, thick and gooey. Photo of slime. Oh, crap. Did we drop the photo? Okay, we've got some ectoplasm stuck to my fingers, a stack of photos, Casey's notes, and a Polaroid camera. The ectoplasm looks thicker and grayer in the photograph. Okay, cool. Let's go east, then. Here's that cat. Photograph cat. The cat wanders off to the north, glancing back at you as if to check whether you're following. North? We're following. Okay, so now we're in the basement stairway. The room is apparently just for show. There are no tables or chairs. A wide staircase runs up to the main floor of the church, and doorways lead east to the nursery, south to the Sunday school room, and north. Mounted on the wall is a gigantic abstract painting. The cat watches for you for a moment, but runs off to the north before you can get near it. Let's examine this abstract painting. The piece is very pleasant, if not particularly interesting. The inoffensive greens and pinks could suggest river waters, or branches waving in the wind. Its size is probably its most impressive quality. I'm going to look up the abstract painting in the notes. Okay. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. I'll tell you about the big painting at the bottom of the stairs, but first I have to tell you about Homeschooled Gwen. Homeschooled Gwen, so called because she was totally homeschooled, went to our high school. Yes, she was not, in fact, completely homeschooled, because her parents sent her to West for 7th period geometry, because they did not remember the quadratic formula. It is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. But Gwen's parents couldn't remember that, even though I, Casey, memorized it so easily. So Gwen went to West High, and she was in my geometry class. You pause before flipping the page. This story barely seems relevant to the church, much less your investigation. Are you sure you want to keep reading? Yes, I think so. You turn the page. So, due to being homeschooled, Gwen was not at all socialized for interacting with us teens of the modern era. What I am saying is that she was super weird. I was friends with her mostly out of morbid curiosity. Here are some of the weird stunts she pulled in geometry. Told us all individually what breed of dog we would be if we were dogs. Read us stories, apparently like Wendy read to the Lost Boys. Gave us a survey about what we found attractive in girls. When I say us, I mean just the boys in class. Gwen was super boy crazy because, due to being homeschooled all of her life, Gwen had never seen a boy before. Yes. This looks like it might be turning into an extended rant against the institution of homeschooling. Casey can be something of a jerk when it comes to things he knows nothing about. Do you want to continue? Yeah, obviously. Casey goes on. I mean, she had probably seen a male human before. She had a dad. We found that out eventually. But you know what I mean. Anyway, one day after school, after 7th period geometry, I was hanging out in the mudroom, waiting for my ride home, and Gwen was there too, waiting for her own ride back to her own horrible school-home hybrid. And then Patrick, the youth leader, showed up, because he's still allowed on school grounds, and he asked me about the lock-in. It is increasingly clear to you that this story has no bearing on your investigation. Do you want to keep reading it? Yeah, we're in for a penny, in for a pound. You turn another page. Or he asked me about something, probably the lock-in. But we were talking, and Gwen was there, and Patrick, the youth leader, without consulting me beforehand, looks over at Gwen and asks her if she wants to come to the lock-in. And of course Gwen says yes, because there will be boys there. Gwen came to the lock-in, and after that she started coming to the high school group meetings. And an unfortunate percentage of people in the group did not seem to catch on right away that Gwen was a nut bar, so she felt very welcome and emotionally supported by us. And when Patrick the youth leader opened the floor for discussion after his sermons, we all got to listen to her insane opinions about Thanksgiving and family togetherness and sex, etc., etc. You look up from the notes. Maybe there's something else you should be doing. Do you want to continue reading? Yeah, we're in it now. Then, this was around the end of last semester, Patrick the youth leader gave all of us in the group one of his challenges. His challenge to us this particular week was for us to think about our relationship to the church. I mean, like, spend the next 7 days thinking about this and come back next week with something really profound. A lot of Patrick the youth leader's challenges are basically attempts to get us to say something profound. And of course, we all forgot about this challenge immediately because, come on, he never follows up on any of them anyway. He just read in some youth leader magazine that you should give your youth group challenges. And when we came back the next week, of course, Patrick the youth leader doesn't bother asking anyone what brilliant answers we came up with to his incredibly vague challenge. We had a sermon, and then we played sardines or whatever. But before we could leave, Patrick the youth leader called us all together because Gwen had something to share with us. Keep reading? Yeah. Now that I think about it, she must have brought the painting in with her, left it behind a couch or something, and waited for 3 hours or however long for Patrick the youth leader to ask for people's answers to his challenge of the previous week. She was just too freaked out and embarrassed to bring it up herself until the very last possible moment. So yeah, it was this painting. I'm not going to bother describing this painting because you can see it yourself. But if you think about it, all those tiny brushstrokes on a canvas that huge must have taken a zillion hours to do, and she supposedly only had a week to paint it. I guess that's what the church meant to Gwen. It goes on a little longer, but that feels like an end to the substance of the story, such as it is. Should you bother reading the rest? Yeah, no, we're in this. Well, sometime during the summer, Gwen quit coming to the youth group. It took me a while to figure out what happened, but it turns out she got grounded from church because her parents found out she had a crush on a boy who went there. So, that is the story on homeschooled Gwen. You will never meet her because her parents will never let her out of her house again. A little ectoplasm drips off your fingers, as if to remind us what's really important here. The cat thinks we should go north, so let's go north. Your fingers itch where the ectoplasm is clinging to them. You turn the lights off the basement stairway. Boiler room. All of a sudden you feel very claustrophobic. This must be a fairly large room, but most of the space is given over to snaking pipes, anonymous machinery, and the church's giant boiler. The cat mews at you, slinks behind one of the room's many pipes and fixtures, and is gone. I remember really liking my church's boiler room. Again, we played hide and seek and also sardines occasionally, and it was a cool room for that purpose. Let's search room. No. Look up boiler room in notes. You flick through the notes and read Casey's handwriting. I've only been inside of the boiler room very briefly, but I have to assume it's a really cool place to hang out. Make sure you tell me all about it when you get the chance. I check out the machinery. A menagerie of valves and pressure gauges stick out from the pipes at awkward angles, some dangerously close to your eye level. I check out the boiler, a massive faceless hulk of an appliance. You can hear it murmuring quietly to itself, or maybe you're hearing something else. Look under boiler. Look under machinery. Pipes. Many of the pipes run all the way down to the floor from their tangled maze in the ceiling, making some corners of the room impossible to reach. There are a few gaps wide enough to stick your head through, and they only reveal more of the same scenery. I guess we're not going to find that cat, after all. Can we meow? No. Say meow to yourself. Your voice echoes in the empty room. No cat to talk to. Okay, I guess let's go back south. And let's go up. You turn the lights off in the basement stairway. Main floor stairway. This room forms a sort of nook off the fellowship hall to the south. A wide flight of stairs leads down to the basement. There are doors to the north, northeast, and southeast. According to the plaques on them, they open onto the pastor's office, the men's restroom, and the ladies' restroom, respectively. A vast framed poster is hanging on the wall in between the restroom doors, and in the middle of the room, directly facing the poster, is a wooden bench. We're going to address all of that in a moment. First, we're going to go southeast to wash our hands. The door swings shut behind you. Ladies' restroom. A restroom in a church is about the same as any other restroom. You have your stalls, your sinks, your mirrors, your garbage can. Wash hands. You scrub your hands until every trace of ectoplasm is gone. Examine the stalls. They look like restroom stalls you'd see anywhere else. Sinks. The sinks are typical sinks. Mirrors. Your own face peers back at you. Garbage. The cleaner must have been in here recently because the garbage can is empty. Look up ladies' restroom in notes. Well, Robin, I actually explored the ladies' restroom briefly during a game of sardines, but then, because of events that transpired, the ladies' restroom was declared to be off-limits, and shortly after that, because of fairness, the men's restroom was declared to be off-limits as well, for sardines purposes at least. Casey, you jerk. Okay. Let's go. Look in stall. You give each stall a very quick once-over. Nothing to see here. Okay. Look up main floor stairway in notes. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. There's an important philosophical difference between the top of the main stairway and the bottom of the main stairway. At the top, there's a poster of an eagle, but at the bottom, there's a painting that Gwen made. They're like opposites of each other. Kind of? Can we look up Gwen? Okay, looking up Gwen brings us to the story. We do not want to keep reading. You close the notebook to save the rest of the story of homeschooled Gwen for another time. Okay. Let's examine this poster of an eagle. The poster is a vast glossy print of a bald eagle gliding through a bright blue sky. In a corner of the sky, a Bible verse is printed. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Isaiah 40:31. Look up poster of eagle in notes. Look up poster in notes. Not the Ten Commandments. Eagle in notes. Yeah, the eagle poster. The fact that it's a bald eagle in that poster makes it pretty clear that whoever designed that poster wanted that Bible verse to apply to the people of the United States of America somehow. Which makes me wonder, are there any other countries that insist God loves them the most? Because God can only love one country the most. That's what the most means. Much to think about. Let's check out this bench. The bench seems to have been made in a deliberately rustic style with heavy timber beams. It doesn't look very comfortable. If you really hate yourself, you can sleep on the bench at the top of the stairs, which I think we inherited from some other church that used it as a torture device during the Inquisition. Fair enough. Okay, what are our exits here? We've got a wide flight of stairs down to the basement, doors to the north, northeast, and southeast. I'll open to the pastor's office, the men's restroom, and the ladies' restroom, respectively. And then we've got the wooden bench. So north to the pastor's office, the door to the pastor's office is locked. We look up the pastor's office in the notes. Look through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. You used to be able to get into the pastor's office all the time, back when Patrick the youth leader had his own sub-office at one end of the room where he had free candy. But that was a security risk, apparently, so they locked up the pastor's office, and Patrick the youth leader had to move his office to his truck. Okay. Yep, that seems right. Let's look up... Ooh, too many O's. Look up the men's restroom in notes. If you have the time, you should go ahead and take a look in the men's room, since who knows how many opportunities like this you'll have in the future. I won't spoil anything by describing it here. Ooh. Tacit invitation. Is that how you use tacit? Whatever. I'm going northeast. As you approach the door to the men's room, you stop yourself. Isn't this something that a creep would do? I mean, yeah, but it's totally creepy. How could you bring yourself to sneak into a men's bathroom, even if no one will ever know? Well, you and I will know, but let's do it anyway. You can put your hand on the handle, but that's as far as you get. You chide yourself for your indecision. Let's examine the men's room door. The plaque on the northeast door says men, and you can guess where it leads. Knock on men's room door. No one answers. Open men's room door. You push the door ajar, and it swings closed. Can we go now? That's it. Enough with this cowardice. The door swings shut behind you. Men's restroom. Yes, this is more or less what you expected. There are some stalls, and some mirrors, and some sinks, and next to those is a garbage can. The only things you haven't seen before are the urinals. Hardly worth having an ethical dilemma over. It's not a concept that you would ever have come up with yourself, but the general principle seems sound. I could photograph to leave some incriminating evidence, but let's just go back out. Okay, so to the south, there is the main fellowship hall. This room is a bit crowded for your tastes. Between the many round tables, each surrounded by a complement of folding chairs, there isn't much space to get from one end of the room to the other. The main stairway is north, the kitchen is east, and the narthex is west. One corner is given over to a glass case containing a model church. Let's see what Casey has to say. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. The fellowship hall is where we eat dinner at youth group, and it is also where the younger kids sit around and talk about their junior high problems, while the older kids play video games downstairs. The church also uses it for other purposes, but I do not know or care about that stuff. Ours was actually an kind of used as an auditorium and a basketball court and a cafeteria, and they held plays there and a dance on a couple occasions. I remember folding up a lot of chairs in that room. Let's see. Tables. The tables look tolerably clean, if chipped in places. There's a model church. It can't be a model of this church. It's the wrong shape. There's an incredible level of detail, though, from the tiles in the roof to the tiny people on the sidewalk. The double doors in front are open, and you can barely make out the shapes of little pews inside. You flick through the notes and read Casey's writing. The model church is a model of some other church. I think it used to be inside of that church, but it got torn down, or they went bankrupt, and the model ended up in our church. It's kind of a creepy object, though. The guy who made it was clearly way too obsessed with this church. I don't know. I kind of think models are cool. Like, I don't have much interest in making models, but I like looking at them when they're models of places. Can we photograph model? Photo of model. Yep, it sure is. Okay. Let's look up tables in notes. The fellowship hall tables are a lot like the cafeteria tables at school, in that where you sit during dinner at your youth group is determined by your clique and your clique's social standing and that kind of thing. I will get around to drawing up a chart someday. Yeah, I remember being kind of obsessed with the interpersonal dynamics that determine seating. But that was really only applicable at school. The church seating was much more you just sit with your family for the most part. Let's see. What else is in here? There are lots of folding chairs. Look up folding chairs in notes. Nobody likes the chairs in the fellowship hall. A bunch of us at youth group have started just sitting on the floor while we eat. Patrick, the youth leader, has condemned us as disrespectful, but he hasn't forced us to stop yet. Okay. There are doors to the north to the main stairway. The kitchen is east and the narthex is west. Let's go east to the kitchen first. Kitchen. The church kitchen contains much the same kind of thing as any kitchen, only more so. Long countertops line the walls, with cupboards and drawers underneath them. A break in the counters allows you to leave the kitchen via the door to the west, and on the far side of the room is a sink set into the counter. A sturdy box is sitting on the floor in the corner with some cans in it. Somebody forgot to put away an empty jam jar. The jam has lost its lid, but it appears to be clean and sterile anyway. The sturdy box, an old label on the box says Navel Oranges, but someone has written Food Bank over that. Apparently they thought they'd need a good sturdy crate for all the food bank donations they'd get. In the orange box are a can of tomato soup, a can of pears, a can of Sugarman's potted meat food product, a can of cherry pie filling, a can of tuna, a can of chicken soup, and a can of peaches. Do I want to examine all those cans? I think I do not. Let's look things up, though. The kitchen. If you've seen Jurassic Park, then the kitchen is totally scary in the dark. If you've seen Jurassic Park, then the kitchen is really scary in the dark. If you haven't seen Jurassic Park, then you should get around to that. Food bank in notes. On the subject of canned food, Casey writes, I'm pretty sure the people who are supposed to be in charge of donating stuff to the food bank are really disorganized, because you always see spare cans of stuff lying around. Or maybe some of the cans were rejected by the food bank. I don't know how it works. Examine the cupboards. You peek inside a random cupboard and find a large number of glasses piled inside. Another gets mugs, plates, mugs, bowls, teacups. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's examine drawers. You pull open a random drawer for a moment, revealing an assortment of cutlery, an assortment of kitchen utensils, dish towels, cutlery, dish towels, kitchen utensils. Okay, that's good. Let's go back to the west, and then west to the narthex. The main entryway to the church, this room, has been set up to be as welcoming as possible. A rack of pamphlets sits in the center of a large table, flanked by pots of fake flowers. Lying open on a podium is a huge Bible. Pinned up on one wall is a board full of name tags. To the east is the fellowship hall, and the large passage to the north obviously leads to the main sanctuary. The way out of the church is south of here, but that's none of your concern currently. This is very familiar. Let's look at the... Well, let's first look up the narthex. The narthex is the first room most people see in the church. I don't know whether it's the one you're going to see first. One time there was a bat in the narthex, and it bit Tammy. I thought this was hilarious, but she did not. I don't know a Tammy. If you don't know Tammy, Tammy is this girl who goes to church but kind of hates it and always brings some non-church related reading material to pass the time. She describes herself as a hobby reader, which is a really awful term, but it's Tammy, so who cares? Can we look up the cat? He didn't have anything to say about the cat. Okay. Name tags. There must be a name tag on here for everybody who's ever set foot in this church. There's Casey, and there's Orchid, and this one says Robin, but they must mean some other Robin. You flick through the notes. When the new pastor came, he insisted that everybody wear name tags all the time, but that didn't last long. Name tags are a pain. Yeah, we had name tags at ours. But I barely remember wearing mine as well. There are pamphlets. Please take one, reads the cursive text at the bottom of the rack, but none of the pamphlets succeeds in engaging your curiosity. You've never been afflicted with any of the problems they purport to solve. Does Casey have something to say about them? I actually paid pretty close attention to those pamphlets in the narthex for a while, and I learned something interesting. People really do pick up the pamphlets and read through them, but they always put them back. Nobody ever takes one home, because subconsciously it feels like stealing from a church, which you're not supposed to do. Not that I've ever stolen anything from a church. Is that consistent with my recollection? I'm not sure. I don't know if I paid that much attention. I'm pretty sure I took some pamphlets home, though. But I don't remember what they were about. I think it was all, like, upcoming events, so it seemed like they were intended for distribution and circulation. Is there anything to the west? I don't know that there is. Oh, there's still the Bible. The Bible is obviously a well-respected object around here, but it's not a mere display piece. The pages have been creased and scuffed by continuous use. You flip aimlessly through the book, and eventually your gaze lands on a passage. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down the dew. Can we just read the notes? The notebook is thick, and as you flick through the pages, it looks like it's nearly full. Surely Casey didn't make notes about everything in the church. How long did he spend on this anyway? There's way too much information here to sit down and read it all at once, but you can look up anything you want to know about. In my experience, if a boy spends this much time making a tool for you, it usually means he's interested, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case here. Sometimes boys can be afflicted by flights of fancy that cause them to do things, even for people that they are not necessarily interested in. Look up notebook in notes. I know there's a lot of the church you haven't seen or that you don't remember, so I'm writing down everything I can think of. I feel like these notes will be an invaluable resource when I get older and feel the need to revisit the carefree days of my youth, so make sure you give them back to me. Okay, there's the ulterior motive. Okay, let's look up Bible in notes. The huge Bible, the eagle poster, or the verses painted on the walls. Huge. But if you turn the lights on, you'll see there's a Bible on that podium. I'm pretty sure that Bible is worth hundreds of dollars. It has a lot of really nice pictures in it, at least. Don't mess with it. Look up podium. You want to be careful if you're sneaking around the narthex in the dark, because there is a podium in there that is really, really easy not to notice, and the corners of that podium are right about at crotch level. Let's examine that podium. It resembles a miniature Roman column, although you think it would probably fall over in a stiff breeze. Examine south. Nothing unexpected. Flowers. Plastic stems and silk blossoms are obviously artificial, but that hasn't stopped someone from trying to water them recently. It says a lot about us Christians that we won't even put real flowers in the narthex, right? It does. It doesn't necessarily say something bad, though. It could say that we have better things to do than worry about live flowers, for example, but you can interpret it in your own judgmental way if you want. Wow. Yeah? It's hard to determine who's being critical of whom here. There's nothing to the west. Yeah, okay. North and east to the fellowship hall. What happens if we try going south? Hopefully you can complete your investigation without having to leave the church tonight. It must be freezing outside. Oh, I guess it's not summertime. Okay. We go north to the sanctuary. Sanctuary. This room can't be as large as it seems. It certainly didn't look so huge from outside. It must be some kind of optical illusion, created by the angles of the vaulted ceiling or the long rows of pews. Near the southern exit is a roll-top desk. Up at the north end of the room is the altar, and the east stairway must lead up to the balcony. It is dark outside, and the stained glass windows are dull and lifeless. Orchid hasn't turned the lights on either. You can barely make out anything in the gloom. Orchid comes over to meet you. I didn't find anything up here, she says. How about you? Does this game support talk to? You detail the evidence you've seen. Orchid listens, wide-eyed. That's great. You took photos of all this, right? She says. Before you can say any more, Orchid gasps and points upward. Something is floating near the ceiling, glowing faintly. A pale figure in a wispy dress. You snap a picture of the ghostly figure. The camera whirs and vibrates and eventually spits out a print of the photo. The ghostly figure hovers silently in the air. We examine the figure. The glowing figure is wearing a pale dress, and her hair is in pigtails. You can't make out the expression on her face, but she's holding her hands out as if she's reaching for something or asking for something. The figure drifts toward the ground and glides northward towards the altar. We go north to the altar. A few steps up from the pews to the south are the preacher's pulpit, the altar, and the American and Christian flags. Behind them, to the north, is a tiny doorway. On the altar are 2 candles. A large cross hangs high on the wall above the altar. The figure drifts northwards through a small door behind the altar. We go north. You catch just a glimpse of the ghost in the darkness before it floats toward the back wall and vanishes. When you switch the light on, the room is empty. Back room. This is a far cry from the grandeur of the sanctuary. The walls are covered in some kind of dark wood panels, but they're shabby and windowless, and the floor is bare concrete. A huge wooden chest and a closet full of robes take up one wall. You can head back out to the altar to the south. A stack of hymnals is crammed into one corner. Some more ectoplasm is smeared on the floor. You snap a picture of the ectoplasm. The camera whirs and vibrates and eventually spits out a print of the photo. Look up back room in notes. You flick through the notes and read Casey's scrawly handwriting. The back room's kind of a secret, I guess, although we use it as the backstage whenever we do plays and that kind of thing. Nobody ever uses it as a hiding place when we're playing games, though. I guess it might be too obvious, or maybe it's just too boring. You can get to the basement from the back room, too. There's a sliding panel in the back wall, but to get it open, you have to apply some upward pressure to get it out of its groove a little bit. That's the real secret, I guess. Examine sliding panel. There's no handle, but you know how to open the door now. Open it. Now you know how it works. The door slides open easily. Behind the sliding door, you find a steep, narrow flight of stairs with no handrail. You walk down them slowly, not wanting to miss your footing in the dim light. Tunnel. You could hardly call this a room. It's just a long, musty, narrow space behind a wall. At one end, a flight of stairs runs up to the room behind the altar. At the other end, a heavy door leads out to the south. In between them, a fuse box is mounted on the wall, its metal door hanging open to reveal a row of switches. A cheap-looking mirror, a black sphere, and some black cloth are lying in a heap on the floor. I examine the sphere. It's a black metal ball with numerous round glass panels set into it. Turning it over, you notice that it's heavyish and slightly warm to the touch. Your fingers also find a small button on the top, base, side of the sphere. Press button. The button clicks and the blue light streams from the glass panels on the sphere, reflecting off the cheap-looking mirror and scattering across the walls and ceiling. This must be one of those party light sphere things that are supposed to make your house look like a nightclub or something. Like, similar to a disco ball? I'm not sure what we're looking at here. Examine black cloth. Thick, heavy black cloth of some kind. A curtain or something, maybe. Can we look up the sphere? No. Look up tunnel in notes. You might want to know where the tunnel is, because that's where the fuse box is. If I remember to draw a map for you, then I'll make sure to point out the tunnel and stick it in here. There is no map. Let's look up these switches. Unlike some of the other switches, the west basement switch actually has a legible label. It's also the only switch that's not turned on right now. Turn west basement switch on. You flick the last switch into the on position. You flick through the notes and read Casey's handwriting. The fuse box is in the tunnel. I don't know how it works. Ohms. Oh, the mirror, right. Cheap-looking mirror. The mirror is largest, but the frame is just cheap, fake wood grain plastic, and the glass, is it actually glass, is slightly warped. Judging by the Goodwill price sticker on the frame, its previous owner didn't think much of it either. This is conceivably something that could be used to create the illusion we saw, but I don't know. At one end, a flight of stairs runs up to the room behind the altar. At the other end, a heavy door leads out to the south. In between them, a fuse box is mounted on the wall. From here, the only way out is up to the back room. Open heavy. Open heavy door. South. We are at the end of the hallway. The hall ends here at a heavy door to the north. A huge mural of David fighting Goliath adorns the west wall, but it's marred by a streak of gray gunk clinging to the wall. Echoing footsteps draw your attention to a figure walking down to the south end of the hallway, but whoever it is goes into the Sunday school room before you can see their face. Photograph gray gunk. Here's more ectoplasm. South. South. Here's the photo of a beached whale and a man lying on the sand. It looks like Jonah hasn't recovered from his ordeal in the belly of the whale yet. So this is where Casey's mural had been. South. East, the Sunday school room. Okay, well, we've done the circuit now. Well, it feels like we're coming up on the climax, but despite the proximity of our conclusion, I think I'm going to call it here for the day. Let's save our game. Chasing a ghost. So, good spot to stop for the time being, and we'll convene again next weekend. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back again in a week.